While we're still awaiting concrete news on Call of Duty 2019 that isn't accidentally leaked by an underperforming former Heisman Trophy winner, besides the fact that Activision does not have a booth at this year's E3, but Infinity Ward will host a panel about the game, and rumors are the reveal will be before June 4th. We've got a bombshell to discuss for the game after that, Call of Duty 2020. The 3-dev Monty scheme that so far has been a sham since none of the studios ever learned from one another, so it's usually just 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards every release, just got a shake up when it was revealed by Kotaku's Jason Schreier that both Raven Software and Sledgehammer Games, who are in charge of development, have been relegated to support studios, and Treyarch will take over the lead development role of Call of Duty 2020 with making Black Ops Black Ops 5. Originally, it was headed up by Raven, who worked as leads on Modern Warfare Reimagined and Call of Duty Online, with Sledgehammer Games taking a backseat after hemorrhaging employees following the failing upwards of studio heads Michelle Condrey and Glenn the Hammer Schofield before they were both dismissed, with Michelle going over to 2K Games and lots of Sledgehammer Games employees following him to that new studio after saving Call of Duty World War II from the disastrous design decisions that were ironically made by the same boss. However, there was constant bickering between the two studios about this upcoming Call of Duty game, so much so that Activision had to step in to make the change and put Treyarch at the helm of the game, which could be the greedy publisher micromanaging, or it could be because they saw the writing on the wall and decided that we needed yet another copy-paste installment of the only franchise that's currently actually making it any money. Treyarch now has an entire year less to make this new game than in the prior rotation, but it's a mixed bag according to sources who are working on the game. Some are pissed about the truncated timetable, but others are excited since the groundwork of the new game has already been laid without drastic change necessary, and that's very different from the last 2 projects, which Kotaku said they'd have a follow-up story about this, which will be exciting to read if it's anything like the Anthem expose. Isn't it kind of odd that the situation is described as a mess with the 2 studios arguing about the game, yet some Treyarch employees think the design is stable enough to be unlike Black Ops 3 and 4? That statement in and of itself is very telling. So anyways, about that Call of Duty 2020 game, work has already started on a campaign set during the Cold War, which is likely remnants from that canned Vietnam era project that Sledgehammer Games was working on before, also ironically having to support Infinity Ward in making Modern Warfare 3 after most of that studio left following an IP dispute. This work will instead be morphed into a single player mode for Black Ops 5, so the people that are so antisocial that they can't even be bothered to play games with others will rejoice that the 4-hour color by numbers file the waypoint time waste will return for the next Treyarch title after being notably absent from this one. However, this game is also supposedly a cross-gen game when it comes to the next PlayStation and Xbox, hopefully not obsolete hardware when it launches. Now that the 411 is out of the way, what do I think about this? As a personal note, I am not a fan of Treyarch games in general, with Black Ops 2 and Black Ops 3 being the only ones that I haven't hated. Unlike Call of Duty 3, which is a disaster, World at War, which is a much shittier version of COD 4, Black Ops, whose amazing maps couldn't even save awful gameplay, and the most recent incarnation of Black Ops 4 being the worst game in the franchise aside from that monstrosity that is Call of Duty Ghosts. And I've liked the games that have been worked on by Sledgehammer Games and Raven, except for Modern Warfare Reimagined, which I protestingly did not play, and Call of Duty World War II before the Division's overhaul that I mentioned. Raven definitely deserves shot at being top dog for the next game, given how great Call of Duty Online is in spite of 250 ping, as well as how both Modern Warfare Reimagined, even though I didn't play it, and the Blackout mode, which Raven did work on, of Black Ops 4, has been received. But even personal studio bias aside, this is really, really bad news for Call of Duty and its fans. This news won't seemingly affect the game coming out this year that's all but been confirmed to be Modern Warfare 4, although there might be some minor impacts that I'll get into later, but it most certainly will affect both Black Ops 4 and Black Ops 5 with a giant ripple effect due to now having to play a shell game with resources to get this upcoming project done for the yearly cadence that is actually hurting more than helping in the case of Call of Duty in many, many different aspects. The immediate thought is that Call of Duty 2020 has to be behind schedule if Activision had to step in to make the switch. They wouldn't have done so without foreseeing all the negative consequences of said move if it wasn't such a bad situation. Much like we got Modern Warfare 2.5 when Infinity Ward needed the backup of Raven and Sledgehammer Games for 2011's Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, we're probably going to get Black Ops 4.5 or maybe even 1.5, considering it's a Cold War era game, now that we're repeating the same situation, but with Treyarch coming in to save those 2 aforementioned studios. However, it's also funny that the current Black Ops 4 is basically Black Ops 3.-5 in the multiplayer department, and according to Kotaku, there's much more to the development story that they have yet to reveal, but the rumors are that the multiplayer is much more like Overwatch and was scaled back after several failed playtests. Maybe this is the result of all those famous YouTubers and streamers going to LA this past week under NDA, yet another playtest disaster for Call of Duty 2020, thus this change happened, or more likely it could be them getting their hands on Modern Warfare 4 early. Anyways, Treyarch is also getting one less year to develop their next game, and given the state of how Black Ops 4 launch, even though it was 1 month earlier than previous releases. The Zombies mode was a buggy fucking mess for months. The multiplayer part of the game had less content in it than any other Call of Duty game at launch, and the campaign was eschewed for the Blackout Battle Royale mode, which, based on the level of attention it's gotten with updates, is clearly what the studio has sunk most of their time into. Their track record here isn't great, even with the extra 11 months. Not to mention, if this game will be a console cross-generation one, Treyarch will have to develop it for not only the current-gen consoles, but the next-gen consoles, which aren't even out yet, nor will it be simple to test their game on APIs that are completely unproven. The last game that did this was Call of Duty Ghosts, and we all know how well that turned out. Of course, the title and concept will be Black Ops 5 with so little time, and the fact that Black Ops 4 initially sold well on the basis of brand recognition alone, given that there were pre-order sales for a game that we knew nothing about except for name, but it destroys any semblance of new ideas for the next several Call of Duty games, given that this year will be Modern Warfare 4, and next year is going to be Black Ops 5. The only positive is that it's a Cold War Vietnam-era shooter, of which there haven't been much in this space aside from the original Black Ops, and in other franchises, an old-ass Battlefield Vietnam game, a Battlefield Bad Company 2 expansion, and Rising Storm 2 Vietnam. This also impacts the current game Black Ops 4 with how Treyarch is now having to shift resources from supporting their current offering over to making that brand new title. Even though they've been mostly locked behind a paywall or grind wall, Black Ops 4 actually has a lot of new content coming every few months, although it's been watered down to pad out the microtransaction sales, and more on those later. Besides, most of the cool BBD bops that they show off in trailers is always hidden away behind some COD points bundle or in reserves that are just even worse versions of RNG boxes than in years prior, because they only contain one item this time around instead of 3, so the majority of the player base doesn't even get to have the content worked realized because they can't even get the items. Additionally, they've already missed on their operation roadmaps in the past, with that leak sniper from Grand Heist still nowhere to be found, and the prop hunt game mode getting pushed back into Operation Spectre Rising, so how much of their current plan for this season will also slip out due to the fact that they don't have as many people working on it anymore if they have to work on Call of Duty 2020. There are still features that were promised on launch, like factions and zombies, and leaderboards or combat records for multiplayer that are not in the game, and in the latest drop of maps for the Black Ops Pass, WMD didn't even get a reskin job, which makes me wonder, will we even see more recycled assets that people already paid for in a previous game, because Treyarch is the greenest company ever made, and they're not going to have enough time to make original maps, so you might as well pull in old maps and not even bother to reskin them if WMD is now acceptable. I guess this also throws out the idea that Gerard Crovy's Easter egg will ever get fixed, as we now come up on the 1-year anniversary next week. This will also probably affect patch cadence, even though it's mostly devoid of any meaningful changes, since Treyarch is doubling down on their bad decisions that they've had since launch, which is another subtle change that I haven't even talked about. Sledgehammer Games showed their willingness to adapt to the wishes of the Call of Duty community with basically overhauling most of the multiplayer part of the game with a Divisions update, but Treyarch has taken the complete opposite I know better than you approach, which has led to the bleeding of their player base, considering that the PC version got the playlist collapsing end of life cycle treatment only 4 months after launch, and also the article talks about how, in spite of sales figures being good initially, the post-launch revenue stream isn't quite where Activision wants it to be, meaning that people have either stopped playing altogether, or that the people that are playing aren't buying into their overpriced macro transactions. Yes, a $28 Hammer bundle isn't micro DLC. I'm also guessing, based on the yellow danger bug earlier this year that showed the majority of players did not actually buy the anachronistic in today's age season pass for a single year game. It's not a secret that in Black Ops 4, Activision, spelled with a $, has been toying with new ways to get you to give them your wallet. Hell, they even said so in not so many words during an investor call recently. It also doesn't help that not only the amount of bullshit, but the cost of said bullshit that's for sale in a full price game is at free-to-play levels, which also, according to the article, is an idea that Activision is actually kicking around for the 2019 Call of Duty game, where Black Ops 4 has actually had some success with the April Blackout free trial and the $12 Humble Bundle option for Black Ops 4's Battle Edition on PC that only has the multiplayer and Battle Royale parts of the game, bringing an influx of players to the game. Who would have thought that the lower barrier to entry would mean that more people are playing the game, thus if the game is fun and rewarding enough, hint, it's not with the time-only progression stream, that means that more players are more willing to spend even more money on your game. I know people that have spent hundreds and even thousands of dollars on Fortnite, yet haven't bought a single fucking item in Black Ops 4 because of the launch price. Call of Duty is clearly in disaster mode right now, and making their next game free to play, at least for the multiplayer part of the game and maybe the Battle Royale if there is one, is a way to right the ship of the franchise that has been going down a bad path for fucking years now. If you really want to chase trends, copy the Fortnite model. Free to play multiplayer or Battle Royale with a paid add-on for the Horde Zombies mode. DICE should do the same with Firestorm in order to resuscitate that mode, but that's another story for another video. Could this be the final nail in Call of Duty's coffin if Activision and the development development studios don't pull this off, between pulling Treyarch's resources off of the current failing Black Ops 4 title to work on yet another regurgitation of that IP with Black Ops 5, and the fact that we'd potentially return to a 2-year dev cycle instead of 3, means that there will be less incremental change or new offerings than we have even now, with a redo of Call of Duty 2 Big Red 1 last year with Call of Duty World War II, Black Ops 3.-5 this year, another Modern Warfare game next, and a remaster of the original Black Ops in 2020, not to mention Treyarch's penchant for making games with the most egregious fill bin of micro and macro DLC models, and my personal taste in Call of Duty games not liking the ones that they make, means that this is a make it or break it moment for this franchise. What do you guys and girls think of this situation? Let me know down below in the comments section. I've been the Schwantz27, out like Raven and Sledgehammer Games. Until next time.